There's a great amount of evidence and publicly available information about climate change, and an even greater expectation for companies to act. This is a big stewardship challenge. But useful frameworks exist that boards can use to assess and monitor their governance of climate-related risks and opportunities. The two that are referenced most often are recommendations by the Task Force on Climate-Related Disclosures and the World Economic Forum Climate Governance Principles. From here on, we will refer to these as TCFD and WEF. The TCFD is a private sector-led, policy-neutral task force that seeks to develop recommendations for voluntary climate-related financial disclosures. Established by the Financial Stability Board of the G20 countries, the TCFD recommendations have become the generally accepted framework for businesses to explain their approach to climate change. The framework encourages companies to make disclosures that are consistent, comparable, reliable, clear and efficient, and which provide decision-useful information to lenders, insurers and investors. Crucially, the recommendations can be applied to any company in the world, whatever its scale. The WEF principles were drafted to encourage businesses to future-proof themselves and to set a vision of how they will function in a low or no carbon economy. The TCFD recommendations cover 4 areas. For now, we're just going to look at governance and how this is supported by the first 3 WEF principles and incentivization. The frameworks encourage boards to ask themselves a series of questions about climate change and governance, such as: where does the board get its information on climate change? What is the quality of that information? Is there climate change expertise on the board itself? If not, how does the board go about accessing that expertise? Is there a specific director or group of directors who take particular responsibility for climate? And how is that responsibility structured? Do discussions occur at board level, or is there a Sustainability and Risk Committee, whose chair reports to the main board? Is climate change a standing item on the board agenda? If not, how do the board ensure there is sufficient and sustained attention to the subject? Are strategic advisors, such as consultants, asked to build climate into their advice? But asking these questions is just the first step. It is critical to include appropriate measured incentives to bring climate-related risks clearly onto the agenda. Here, the WEF Climate Governance Principles suggest a series of questions. For example, are climate targets and/or goals integrated into management's incentivization model? If so, how do these targets and/or goals relate to other management incentives? Are there any inconsistencies or contradictions in relation to the other incentives? Decisions have to be made about which specific climate KPIs will be built into the incentivization model. The board also needs to decide how it's going to assess the suitability of climate-based performance incentives and how it will measure them. This is how incentivization has been implemented by Shell. In March 2019, Shell set out initial steps the company will take in delivering commitments on climate change, made in a joint statement with investors participating in Climate Action 100+ initiative. Climate Action 100+ is a global investor initiative to ensure the world's largest greenhouse gas emitters take necessary action on climate change. It involves over 320 investors, collectively representing $33 trillion in assets. Details were outlined by Shell in its 2018 annual report.